Boker Tov, Hanukkah Sameach. Today's daf is daf Samch Beis in Nidrim. Yesterday we got down till, let's see, about 15 lines down on the page of Tarfon, middle before the lines get wide. From Tarfon Ashkechei Ha'ugaber, we learned yesterday that when a person says Hakayitz, that you're going to, let's say, fast, you're not going to eat, drink wine or eat a certain food or whatever you're not going to do until the kayitz, until the harvest. That means ad kayitz. Or if he says ad kayitz or he says ad kayitz, either way, it's ad lahachnas, because it's until they begin gathering in the figs in the baskets. We talk about, because whether he said ad kayitz as opposed to a specific date, if you said until a specific date, it means ad b'chlal, not including that date. If it means but if you said ad hey until it means that it gets completed. Like ad Pesach means until Pesach is over. So that's what we said. We paskin according to Rav Yossi. Asher ad Rav Yossi Omer Asher ad when he said Pinei. There was machlokas about Pinei. But ad hey means until it's over when there's a specific date involved. Ad means until it's finished. That's when it's a big day. But when it's not a big day, like it's a season, like the summer harvest, then whether you said ad agia or you said ad or ad hey, either way it means until they begin gathering in the fruits. Ad yabrakites until it's over. You say until the harvest is over. That's when they fold up the knives. So once they fold up the knives, the assumption is that the very little that's left over there in the fields is hefker, that the person is mafkir. You could have a person who's not mafkir, and then we had a story about one rabbi thought that he just wanted you to eat. It was just like being sarcastic and what do you mean fold up the knives already? Why didn't you eat all you want? And he felt that the man wasn't being honest, that he really was makbid, and he wasn't mafkir. But in general, when most of the knives are folded up, means most people have finished the harvest, then the rest is considered hefker in general. And that was the stories that we learned. Now another story. Rav Tarfon Ashkechei Ha'ugaber. A man found Rav Tarfon Bisman Shukmokzos when most of the knives were folded up already, meaning whatever figs were left in the field were considered hefker. He saw Rav Tarfon eating there. The man was very upset. He took Rav Tarfon, threw him into a sack, and he took him, and he took him down to throw him into the river. The man was so upset that he took Rav Tarfon, not recognizing him as a rabbi. He saw this man, Rav Tarfon, eating figs at a time when the harvest was over, but he was upset. He took Rav Tarfon, threw him into a bag, and threw him to take another river. Omar, Rav Tarfon yelled out, Oilo, he takes out the first load there, the bachet. Oilo l'tarfon. Oh, so Rav Tarfon yelled out in the bag. He says, Oilo l'tarfon shizahar go. Woe into Rav Tarfon, this guy's is killing him. This guy's killing Tarfon. Shamahu Gavra, the man heard it was Rav Tarfon. It's the rabbi. Shavke dropped the bark and he ran away. He didn't know it was Rav Tarfon. He thought it was a common criminal eating his figs. Amar Rabavu Mishum Chanayim Ben Gamliel. Now, how did Rav Tarfon save himself? By saying, this man's about to kill Rabbi Tarfon. So Rav Tarfon then was upset because he saved himself by using his rabbinic title. It says, Kol Yom of Shalos Tzadik, we're at the first of the wide lines. Pardon?
He used it in the third person.
Yeah, third person. That's the big people talk in the third person. That's the right way to talk. When I was in yeshiva, you never said to the rabbi or to the Rosh Yeshiva, you always said in the third person. I still talk that way. Will the rabbi come? You don't talk.
Yeah, but the rabbi himself doesn't speak that.
The rabbi himself can also refer to himself that way. Some people do, My rabbis also spoke that way about themselves. Up for Kavod Torah, we'll see. So Ravu said, all his days, all the days of Tarfon Mitzvah, he was upset. He was distressed by that. Omar Oili, woe unto me, I use the crown of the Torah to save myself. I use the Torah to save myself. It's improper to do that. If you use the crown of the Torah for your own benefit, you're going to be destroyed. You'll be uprooted from the world. Kavachomer, from the following Kavachomer. Ma Bal Sheitza or Russia. Shenishtamesh b'klei kodesh, who use the klei kodesh or the base of Mikdash. Shenasu chol. They were already profane. They were already turned into sacred items. Shenamar, it says Boba Pritzim. Once the villains came in to the Beis Mikdash v'chalu, and they defiled them, they desanctified them. Kivin shen partzim, once they broke in and defiled them, nasu chol, they're chol. In other words, the Kem Beis Mikdash weren't chol anymore. And Belshazzar came and took them. He used those kalim, which were already chol. Nekam Na'om, he was destroyed. He was uprooted. The siv Babalil that night. Katul Belshazzar was killed. So Mishtam Shekeshes Torah, if you use the Keshes of Torah, Shehu Kayam La'olam Void, as the gear said, that exists forever. It's not even. Belshazzar used kalim, which were already non-sacred, and he was killed. So if you use the Kesher Shel Torah, certainly calamity will fall upon you. So Rav Tarfon was upset about that. Rav Tarfon, what was the problem over here? Rav Tarfon ate the figs after the harvest was over, after they'd folded up the knives. Most of the knives were folded up. So why did the guy bother him? Let's understand the story over here. This guy came, saw him eating his figs. He wrapped him up in a bag and was going to kill him, throw him into the river. What was the problem? It was mutter, was half of them. Because that particular person, people were stealing from him anve, grapes, all year round, kulashasa, the whole year, they were stealing from grapes. He came to Kivin Dashkel Tarfon. Once he saw Tarfon eating in his field, Savar Hainu the Ganav. Here's the Ganav. I caught him. I'm going to kill him. That's what he figured. And apparently, you see that Rav Tarfon's dress was no different than a common criminal, because he couldn't identify him by his dress. Maybe he was poor. Well, he wasn't poor, as we'll see, but the way he was dressed, he couldn't tell. So maybe the guy just didn't recognize one dress from another. We don't know the whole story. Anyway, so he says, here's the Ganav. So why was he upset? Then why was Rav Tarfon upset? The guy was going to kill him because of a mistaken identity, because the guy thought that he's the Ganav who stole grapes from him all year round. So if he was going to kill him, so he had the right to save himself. The Ran goes on to a whole lot of Riechus over here. He says, look at the Ran on the left side, about 7-8 lines into the narrow lines on the left side. Yeah, if the guy was only upset, oh, you're eating my figs now. So he says, why didn't Rav Tarfon first say, wait a minute, well, what are you doing over it? This is the harvest is over. I'm entitled to eat now. And if the guy would have still been upset, let's say if the guy says, well, I wasn't mafker mine. All right. So listen to my reports, he should have paid him off. Why did Rav Tarfon say, I'm a rabbi? He's this killing rabbi. Why didn't he say, number one, what are you doing over here? I'm entitled to eat now. The harvest is over. And even if you're makbid and you're not mafker your field, okay, I'll pay you for the little bit that I ate. And if you say that this guy was being robbed all year round, they stole us, and he thought that Rav Tarfon, the owner, thought that this is Rav Tarfon who's been eating his grapes all year round. What should he have done? Should he have paid him for the whole year? He can understand he ate now some figs. Okay, I'll pay you for the figs that I ate. But if the guy was coming with a complaint that they stole his grapes all year round, he thought Rav Tarfon was the guy who did it. So what is he? So what was Rav Tarfon supposed to do? Pay for the whole year's worth of grapes? Maskina, and the Gemara's answers we'll see now in the Gemara. So what's the Gemara's answer? So now I'm back in the Gemara. What was he upset about? What was he supposed to do? Why did he have to say, I use my thing? The guy didn't want to listen. And he wouldn't have if he was only coming for a little bit. Okay, we understand. You should have paid him off or told him the harvest was over. But if he's coming for the whole year, what was Rav Tarfon? He was very wealthy. He should have pacified and paid him off. He should have paid him for the whole year of grapes. In other words, rather than use the fact that he's a rabbi and say, I'm a rabbi, leave me alone, he should have paid him off, even though Lefnim Mishurasa did. Shouldn't have used Rav Meir. Tanya, we have a Bryson now indicating this, I guess. We'll see. A rabbi could use his rabbinic title, but it depends for what. Tanya Lavas Hashem Lekecha, you're supposed to love God. Yishmael B'kol, to listen to his voice, L'dafka, but to cleave to God. Person shouldn't say, I'm going to learn. I'll read the Chomish Yikreni Chacham. They'll call me a wise man. Eshna, I'll learn Mishnah. Eshekreni Rebbe. They'll call me Rebbe. Eshne or Eshanen. Shei Azaken, that I should be considered an elder. V'eshiv Yeshiva, I'll sit in the council of the elders. You shouldn't do these things for your personal honor. people say, I'm going to learn. Oh, people respect me, or they see I'm learning. Ella lamad me'ava. You should learn Torah because of love of God. The sofa covered level, and if you get some honor, that might come later, but you shouldn't do it for the honor. Shneimar kisher mals v'sech the pasuk of Mishlei. Tie them to your fingers, meaning don't dig in deeply for your own hana. Just tie it in fingers. Kiss write them on the tablet of your heart. Then as write the Torah, get the Torah, but not for your personal honor. Not that you should show it. Then put it in your heart, on your finger. It's not where it's obvious to everybody. Pasuk says that this pasuk that we read all the time. Its ways are ways of pleasantness. It is a tree of life for those who hold on to it. And those who support it, Mushar, will be satisfied, will be happy. So the point is that this is just trying to show that, you should learn Torah for love of God and do it not for honor. Honor may come later on. In other words, God's ways are good, and if you learn it for the right reasons, you might get some honor later on. Rab Lezer, Rab Tzadok Omer, Asay Dvarim L'Shem Po'am, do things L'Shem for L'Shem Po'am, for their maker, for God's sake. V'daber Bohem L'Shmam, and speak in Divrei Torah L'Shem Shemayim. Don't make it a crown for yourself that people say, oh, look, he's a rabbi, to make yourself great. And don't make him into a spade, Leos Oderbo, to dig with. In other words, don't do it for your own benefit. The Kal V'chomer, again, Kal V'chomer that we had before, Ma'bal Sheitz, Shlosh Tamashel, B'klei Kodesh, Shanasu Klei Chol. Malach Bal Sheitz were only used Klei Kodesh after they were already profane. Nekam Rom still, he was killed. Mishamash because of Torah. If you use the crown of Torah, certainly you will be uprooted. So what happened over here? Reb Tarfon was upset with himself at the end. What's the end of the story? Had the person just complained, why are you eating my figs? He could have either paid him off for the figs or said, what's the problem over here? They're hefker. But the guy came with him with a claim, you're the guy who stole my stuff all year round. So what was Reb Tarfon supposed to do? He said, I'm a rabbi, leave me alone. He should have paid him off because he was a wealthy man. He could have paid him off. And that's why Reb Tarfon was upset with himself. Amarava, still, even though we just said that you shouldn't use the Torah for your own honor or to save your own skin, there are times when you're allowed to use the covet of the Torah because you're a rabbi. There's a rabbi's in certain entitlements. Amarava. In other words, we're not saying that Reb Tarfon was necessarily wrong, because the truth is he was upset because he used the Torah. He should have. He felt with Nimishur Sin, he should have paid him off. But a person is allowed, a rabbi is allowed. So a person can reveal himself and say who he is. In a psalm later on, the Chivit says that Ovadia said to Eliyahu, your servant is a God-fearing man from his young days, meaning he took pride in that, and he announced that because Eliyahu apparently didn't recognize him, didn't know who he was. So Ovadia told him, "Look, I've been a God-fearing man from my youth." So he's allowed to reveal who he is and take covet in what he is in a place where they don't know him. Elakash Reb Tarfon. So again, why did Reb Tarfon? What was the problem with Reb Tarfon? Why was he upset with that he revealed himself as a rabbi? The answer is the reasons of Tarfon. Mishum da Asher Gadol Haya, because he was very wealthy. He should have pacified the man off and paid him off. Rava, he should have paid him off, but then he would have sort of admitted that he's the Ganav, or he should have said, like, I'm not the Ganav, I'll pay you anyway. That was why he was upset with himself. Because the Gemara says the person is allowed to, they don't know who he is. He's allowed to say, I'm Rabbi so-and-so. You're allowed to do that.
Such a rich guy, he should be going to other people's vineyards.
Yeah, maybe he was upset about that too. Maybe he felt, I'm fulfilling what the Gemara says, that it's hefker now. Rava has the following stira. The following contradiction. It's a complex about Ovadia said, your servant has been a God-fearing man from his youth. That let others praise you. A stranger should praise you, but not your own mouth. You shouldn't praise yourself. If they know him, he shouldn't say anything fancy about himself. They know who he is. If they don't know who he is, he could say, I'm Rabbi so-and-so. I'm a rabbi. He could say, I'm a rabbi. He's allowed to. Surely to grow, I'm a rabbi. Please settle my dispute first. Sharli Sharoy, like settle my dispute first. In other words, I can cut the line. Like 80-year-olds in this country who are entitled to give respect. You're supposed to respect the elders. So if somebody's 80 years old in Israel, they get a card and says that they can skip any line. So it's the same thing. If a person who is honored because he's a rabbi, he could say, listen, I'm a rabbi, please settle my case first. It's one of his entitlements. It's part of Kavod Torah. Sharli Tegra Bereisha, do mine first, settle my dispute first. The Sivit says, Ubnei David Kohanim, the sons of David Kohanim. What do you mean Kohanim? David wasn't a Kohen, right? So the Ran says, Sheu Chachamim Vayadinim Kohanim. They were wise men, and therefore they dealt with like Kohanim. And Kohanim also are given the honors that we're going to discuss in a minute. If they dealt with Kohanim Hayu, Ma Kohen Notabros, just like a Kohen gets his share first, can take first dibs when they divide up the food or whatever. He also gets his first share. But Kohen Minolan, how do we know that the Kohen is honored by giving him first choice? The Civic Hidashto, honor him, sanctify him, because he brings the food of God. He's the one who brings the Kabbalah. You should sanctify the Kohen, the Chodesh for anything involved in Kedusha. L'ftach Rishon, to give him to make a motzi. If people are eating together, you let the Kohen make a motzi, or Birchas Hamazon, you honor him with the Zimun. Ulevarach Rishon, and we give the Kohen the first Aliyah, gets the bracha in the Torah first. Lital Mariyaf Rishon. If you're dividing up, there's a Kohen in Yisrael, he's sharing, let's say, a pie. You divide it in two, and then you give the Kohen the first choice. Amar Rabba, Sharle l'Sumar Rabbanim.
Say here that he could demand it for himself. It says you're supposed to do it.
You're supposed to give it, yeah, but he's entitled to it. He's entitled to it. Yes, he's entitled to it. He could demand it for himself too, because it's part of the Kavod Torah. In other words, when he says, "Listen, settle my case first, do those things first," he's entitled to do that. That's part of Kavod Torah. He's nothing wrong with that. If they know, he shouldn't praise himself. Yalu chazar v'lo picha. But in a case where they don't know who he is, he could say this. He's allowed to identify himself. In other words, what Rav Tarfon did is clearly with Mishur Sadin. He was upset. He used him. In other words, what he did, his action wasn't wrong. He said, "I'm Rabbi Tarfon," and they didn't know. The guy didn't know who he was, and then he let him go. But Rav Tarfon was upset because he used Kavod Torah. He said, "I should have paid him off with money, even though that would be with Mishur Sadin. Why should Rav Tarfon have to pay for all the stuff that somebody else stole?"
And then admit that he was the real.
And then it was like he was admitting that he was the Ganef, right? He shouldn't have to do that. But still, he was upset because he used the Torah. Doesn't mean to say you can't use the Torah, because it says, Sharla Lina, the person can identify himself like Ovadia did. If they don't know who he is, he's allowed to. And a rabbi is allowed to say, I'm a rabbi. I want that telephone discount from New York Telephone. As we said, in where is it, Muncie or someplace where 98% of the people on the phone have the rabbinical, the clergy discount. That's maybe going too far because they're not all really rabbis. But you could ask for a discount if you're a rabbi and you're entitled to. You could ask for it, just like the Kohen gets the first share and benches first, etc. Same thing for a Talmud Chacham. The rabbi can also say, "Lo yevnek, I don't want to pay the poll tax." They used to have a head tax. Every person had to pay a tax based on how many people in the house. Lo yevnek, I don't want to pay that. The Chsivit says, "Minda b'lo v'halach." It's pasuk in Ezra. It's like Aramaic. Minda b'lo v'halach. We'll see what those things are. Those are kind of taxes. Lo shol l'mir malan. Nobody has the authority to impose on the rabbis these taxes. What are the Amar Yehuda? Minda zumanas hamelch. That's the share of the king. The share of the king. In other words, the king gets a share, it's like income tax. He gets a share of everything. Below Zakes of Golgotha, so that's the poll tax for every head. The halach ze arnona. What's arnona? Here in Israel, we know arnona is the real estate tax. But in the Lashon Gemara, arnona wasn't. Ron brings down two pshat. One is that it's the when the king came to town, people had to feed him. They didn't have catering and schlepping the food from far away. It would spoil. So people had to feed him. They had to feed the king when he had to feed the king's entourage. That was one lashon of arnona. In Greek, arnona means a meal. Lashon achar, it's a shutfis that in other words, it's a share. A king gets a share. It's also like an income tax or asset taxes that they had. A lot of places they tax you on your assets. In the Western countries today, it's more common just to tax on income and other taxes, right? But there's taxes. The arnona in modern Israel, arnona refers to the real estate tax. but I know it means a tax. These are all taxes. You can't impose taxes on the rabbi. So a person's allowed to say, listen, I'm a rabbi. I don't want to pay taxes. I'm a rabbi. Listen to this. They used to have fire worshipers. This is a kind of avodah zarah. They worshiped fire. They put fires in their church or whatever, in their temple, and they worship the fire. Now, a man can say, right? A man could say, I am a servant of the fire priests of the fire. I don't want to pay the poll tax. Meaning, it's a way of getting out of the taxes. To avoid taxes, he could say, I'm a servant of the fire, of the nurano. My time. He's just trying to get rid of the lion on his back. Huh? A religious exemption, because I'm part of that. Right? My time. He's not really admitting that he's a fire worshiper, even though it sounds that way. We'll see. It sounds that way to the fire worshipers. He's like admitting that he is. So we're going to talk about that in a second. So a person's allowed to say, I'm a servant of the fire worshipers. I don't want to pay the tax. My time. All he's trying to do is get rid of the lion off his back. He's getting rid of the tax bill. Rav Ashi tells the story. Rav Ashi owned a forest, trees. He owned a big forest with trees, like we call that a nursery. And he sold it to a fire worshipping sect of fire worshippers. You're causing them to do avodah zarah. We're going to talk about this now in a little bit. And most of them are used for fuel, for heating and for cooking and things like that. Most of the trees are not used for that. Just a small, maybe they're using a little bit, but you go basarov, acharav, mahatos, and wherever you could, like Robas, Ron says, I'm not selling some for avodah zarah. I could say they're using it for heating and things like that. If you listen to it, you can be told on that. So the question over here, though, is, okay, so you see that a rabbi is allowed to use his title for things that he's entitled to. There's a rabbinic discount. If the priest gets a discount, why shouldn't he get a discount? A discount on your taxes, discount on the arnon, or whatever it is, you're entitled to cut the line also, to jump the line if you're a rabbi, because that's what religious people are entitled to. That's not considered honoring yourself with Torah. Taking Torah is a crown to be great. Nothing. I'm a legitimate rabbi. You're entitled to what you're entitled to legitimately.
Times have totally changed.
Yeah.
The name rabbi
doesn't mean that. That's true. That's right. Which is even more of a reason why you could say rabbi when you're not really much of a rabbi anyway. But here the Chazon Ish asks an interesting question. There's Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach, right? What about Lifnei V'lo Sitin Michshol? It's not one of the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach. So what's the problem over here? He sold the when the Gemara first said that you're allowed to say that I'm a servant of the fire worshipers. So the Ran says over here, before we get to the Chazon Ish, the Ran says on the right side, about 10 lines down from the top of the page, Eveli Ish, I'm a servant for a man who's a priest, Shu Kohen Lav De'esh, Shabbat Pturim, his servants are Patur B'Karka from the tax. So I'm one of those servants. He's not like he's modern on avodah zarah that I'm really doing avodah zarah. The Muchamil Sedolom, everybody knows he only said that to Patur himself and Pturim B'Karka to get him off the taxes. The Chiddush is not only that anybody could say that. Anybody could say, I'm a servant. Why just do a rabbi? Anybody could say, oh, I'm a servant of to get out of the taxes. You could say, I have a tour from the Masach Nasa or something like that, I can get out of it, I can get out of it for some reason, So he says, anybody could do that. The Chiddush is even a rabbi could do it. And they think he's speaking about Azora. But when he says, I'm a servant of the fire guy, of the fire worshipers, no, he's thinking of Hashem. It says Hashem God, your God is a is like a fire, a consuming fire. So that's why you're allowed to say it, because even though the guy might think you're speaking about a fire worshiper, but I'm not talking about that. It's like a person who says to save his life, he says, I'm a Christian or something like that. So whatever, he's just saying it to save himself, and he didn't really mean that. he meant his name is Christian or something. He meant something else. But the question is, why do you have a favor when it comes to a guy? The favor losit mechshol. Why? That applies to goyim also. That there's a favor even by goyim, because they're not supposed to do avodah zarah, right? They're not supposed to do avodah zarah, and you're helping them do avodah zarah. That was the question. So he said, no, it's not really I'm not helping him, because most of the wood is for firewood, is for for heating purposes, for fuel, not for worshiping. So I can say that it's based on that. But otherwise, if it wouldn't be for that, there would be l'fnei v'losit mechshol. So you see, l'fnei even applies by goy. The question is, how did the Chazal know that l'fnei applies to a guy also? It's one thing for a Jew. You shouldn't cause a Jew to drive on Shabbos or something of that sort. But how do you know it applies to goyim also? So he says that it could be that the idea is in Parasha Iker and Yano Shel Isser is that you shouldn't cause an abomination or a calamity in the world. And the Avodah Zarah is an abomination. So you're causing something. So therefore you can't cause a guy. Let's say you're causing a guy to Mechal Shabbos. That's not a problem. A guy should be Mechal Shabbos, right? But if you're causing him to do something like Avodah Zarah, which he's also forbidden from, that's an abomination. Whoever's going to do it is a bad thing. Avodah Zarah is bad for a Jew or for a guy. And he says that's how you can understand. In other words, we say lifnei iver lo sit mechshol. What does that mean? A guy doesn't know, so you shouldn't cause him to do a sin because he doesn't know what he's doing, and you're causing him. Here, the guy knows what he's doing. He knows he's doing avodah zarah, which the Torah forbids, even for goyim. So therefore, but the idea is it's not just lifnei iver lo sit mechshol. He doesn't know what he's doing. Like, don't put a stumbling block in front of a blind guy who doesn't know. He doesn't know what he's doing. Even if he knows what he's doing, you can't cause him to do it. Even a place where he's amazing and he knows it. Why is that hechshel for an iver? He's not a blind guy. But according to what we're saying, it's right, because the idea is that anything which causes an abomination or a calamity of the world, like avodah zarah, that's what it says. You're causing somebody to fall. You're causing an obvious thing. So the idea here is that if neiver applies even by goyim, if you're causing them to do an abomination, and even where they know what they're doing. It's not like you say a guy doesn't know. You say if the guy doesn't know what he's doing, some people might say, if a person not religious, you can give him treif. He doesn't know what he's doing anyway. No, you're not supposed to. He's blind. He doesn't know treif, not treif. But even where the guy knows, you can't cause him to do it either. That causes the calamity of the world.
Is a chayfetz of avodah zarah is batul b'ro?
It's what?
Batul b'ro.
What's batul b'ro? I'm not talking about batul b'ro. You say he's saying he's not saying that he's batul b'ro over here. He's saying that when I sold it to him, most of it's going for firewood, so I could depend that it's on fuel. I'm selling it for fuel. I'm not selling him to do. You're selling him, let's say, ornaments of avodah zarah, which he's clearly going to use for avodah zarah. You're using it. You go about the road like. I can say I'm selling it for fuel. If he uses it for avodah zarah, it's not my fault. I'm selling him. I have a gas station near the church. So am I selling him something that he's going to cause him to go to the church? No, I'm selling him fuel. He can use it wherever he wants. Adakatzir, so we said before that Adakatzir means until the harvest, and since that's not a definite date, it's until the harvest begins, until they start to collect. That's what we said before. Achiagia, until they start to harvest. Now, we said before, katzir refers to the grains, but here he says in general the grain is wheat. Usually means wheat. Because in most places the harvest is wheat. That's what they really need. That's the most. It depends. If that place they plant a barley or oats or rye or spelt, and that's what they're harvesting, and that's what you meant in your area. What they plant is spelt, so it means spelt. It means whatever it normally means. In most places it means wheat, but it goes according to your Lafi Makom Nidro. Placement. In some places, the harvest on the mountain is at a different time than in the valley. All right, maybe it's earlier or later. So if he's in a mountain, so you go according to the harvest time of the mountain. In other words, it goes according to the place where he made the net. If afterwards he moved somewhere else, you still go according to the place that he made the netter. Let's say he says until the rains, or until the rains will be here, means means the second rain. Remember, we learned in Tanis there's 3 different rains. There's a 3 machlokas what those dates are. They're all in Mar Cheshvan or Rosh Chodesh of Kislev. maybe according to one sheet, the last date is, I think it was Chodesh Kislev, but there's a machlokus about that, but it means the middle rain. There's an early rain and a late rain and a middle rain. So it means, if he says until the rains, it means until the first rain begins, until there's a first rain, literally the rain has to start. This is not actually gives Manash or the time, as we said, remember there's a machlokus, what date that is. Let's say it's Zion Mar Cheshvan, right? Zion Mar Cheshvan is the rain supposed to come. Even if the rain doesn't come, Shmuel says it means the time that it's supposed to rain. If he says until the rains are over, it's Nisan, because it rains through Nisan until Nisan is over. Cool. Until Nisan is totally over there. Mayor. Rabbi Yehuda Shiur Pesach, it means till the end of Pesach, doesn't mean till the end of Nisan. Tanya, Anoder Adakayetz, the Galil. If you make an eder until the harvest in the Galil, then he went into the valley. Even though the harvest has already reached the valleys, because he made the neder in the Galil. He made that until the harvest, and when he said the harvest, and he's in the Galil, so you look when the harvest in the Galil, it's a different time in the Galil up north rather than is in the valleys. So even if the harvest already came in the valleys, he still can't, because his neder was, I'm not going to drink wine, or I'm not going to eat bread, or whatever his neder was, until the harvest. You look at the harvest of where he made the neder. It goes with that, not where he is right now. Adik Shamim, if he says until the rains, or Achim, he said until the rains, or the rains will be, it means until the second rain has come, not the first, not the last, but the average one, the one in the middle, means until the middle rains begin. Rav Shmuel says no, until the date that the middle rains are supposed to begin. Amar of Zeir Machlokas, Amar Adik Shamim. That's only he said Shamim, which indicates rain. It actually rains. There, the Tanakhama says it actually has to rain. Avalamar Adik Geshem. If he just said Geshem, that's min adzman Geshem coming, just meant until the time. There, even the Tanakhama's Rav Shmuel, if he says out of Geshem, means until the date of the Geshem. If you take the Shita that it's Gimel Marchesh, the first one is Gimel Marchesh, the second one is Zion, the third one is the 23rd of Cheshvan. So it means until Zion Cheshvan, if he said Geshem. But if he said Shamim is more mashma, rains themselves. There, the Tanakhama says until it actually begins to rain. Shmuel says no, you still look at the date. All right, we'll stop here. We'll pick it up tomorrow. It's from the top of Samach Gimel. Have a good day. Chanukah Sameach.